Hello, everyone. So good to see that many of you are entering into the room to join today's webinar. Thanks for coming to today's webinar. My name is Jessie, and I'm the admissions manager at Hong Kong Baptist University. Today, we're happy to have Dr. Joe Spartans from the Department of Communication Studies here to share on the topic on the positive and negative consequence about on social media usage. And I think he may have a story to tell today, which is about a girl fired from her job over a Twitter message, even before she started. Today, our webinar has two major parts. One is Dr. Barton's presentation on the topic first, which takes around 30 minutes. Followed by that is a Q&A section, and you all are welcome to ask questions related to the topic at that time. And the other part is a short presentation by me about undergraduate admissions of HKBU, and I will share information about application procedure and also scholarship details with you at that time. And there's another section of Q&A, and you are all welcome to ask questions as well. Just want to let you know that today's webinar will be recorded, as the video will be shared with those who are also interested in it but cannot join us today. So good to see that we have around 50 people here. So I think we can almost start, and I will pass the floor to Dr. Joe Spartans. Dr. Spartans, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Welcome all to this online seminar. I always try to use titles to get some attention to my topics or to my courses. So I'm not going to talk like 30, 45 minutes about this girl being fired. It's going to be one slide, but at least some of you thought, ooh, that's going to be interesting. So that's good. So I always try to get some attention, like typical what you see in journalism and press releases. You see these very nice headers, and as I said, I try to be connective with that as well. Welcome at HKBU. What I'm going to do in the next 30 to 45 minutes, I'm going to actually do a short version of how I teach. I'm going to give you an idea on some of the topics that we talk about at the School of Communication at Hong Kong Baptist University, and the way I interact with my students. So first of all, as I said, welcome. I'm going to I always show this first picture because this is, well, my own building is actually at the end, right? But this is the main building of our university. For some of you, perhaps you are familiar with that. It's a really cool campus. So the first time I was here a couple of years ago, I thought, impressive, very nice. What I first do is I briefly always introduce myself a bit. So I'm an associate professor in organizational communication at the Department of Communication Studies. And before I started in August 2020 at BU, I worked at different universities in the Netherlands. The University of Twente was my first, where I received my PhD. And I now do a lot of work on the role of social media in organizations. So how do social media, or how have social media influenced the way we work in large or small organizations? This was my background until August 2020. You see, I still have my apartment in the Netherlands, in The Hague, and on the left, you see these nice I always run there. You see these dunes, and this is real, actually. So the one that I still, every time when I look at it, I think, ooh, it's good that I still have my apartment there. This is my view now. So actually, I'm sitting in my living room working from home. And if I would sit at the bed, it's too cold in Hong Kong here, at least in the New Territories now. But I would probably then normally show you the view from my balcony, and that's this one. So at the moment, I'm living in the New Territories, which is pretty cool, actually. So I have actually two very nice places where I live in the world. I do a lot of running, and this was one of my first a couple of years ago, and I'm still very impressed that at the middle of the road, you just meet a monkey who is doing, well, he ignored me, or he or she ignored me a bit, and then She looked around and that's it. So it's like in the middle of the street. And still when I see these monkeys, I'm still like, whoa, cool. This is Hong Kong. That's so impressive. So this is, I normally introduce myself a bit longer, but because of time restrictions, this is what I show. So this is how I start my courses. And then of course I ask you guys, who are you? So what about you? And I do that mostly online first. So that would be a first assignment in the course. And as I said, I'll mostly do that online. So I ask my students, for example, in this case, to show an online, what would you show the world? So what is your last picture that you shared on Instagram or on Twitter or on any other social media? For the older participants here, like me, what do you post on Facebook, for example? And on the next slide, so we don't have time for that assignment, unfortunately, but these are always the coolest parts of the beginning of my course. Well, also for students, but especially for me, because then I'll show you on the next 3 slides what kind of examples I get from these student groups. These ones, whoa, you see kitties, you see pictures of how they were young, and everybody has some kind of their own, so they have to also add 1 or 2 sentences of what is it. And every year it's the same. This is like so cool. You see a big hamster, so it's a pet of somebody, or the view of Disneyland. Somebody is actually playing video games. We have eating. So this is actually the first question, especially when I talk about these topics on online behavior of people. I ask them, okay, just share what you want to share with the world. And then I get these pictures, so cute. I mean, you see hamsters, you see cats, you see, there's even, oh yeah, there's Disney twice. Some of them share a visit to Europe for the first time. So this is actually how I start most of my courses. When it comes to and then, I mean, of course, I ask much more of them. So I ask where they are coming from, and if they want to still participate in the course, what their intentions is, because we have different kind of courses. We have like elective courses and obligatory, and I also teach some elective courses. So it's good to know how enthusiastic my crowd is and where they're coming from and what their background is. So that's a bit how I start most of my courses. Now I'm coming already very close to the topic of today, and that's online boundary management behavior. So the idea is of online boundary management behavior is what, for example, do you post online? What kind of pictures, what kind of updates, on what kind of media, with whom do you share? Do you share that only with your friends, or do you have an open access account online, or do you have separate accounts? So that's a bit the idea, a general summary of the idea of online boundary management behavior. And then I always start with this. I mean, this is a relatively old, so 2015, that's like already 7 years ago. But it's still, I think it's still appropriate. So this Sella girl in the United States, she put a message on Twitter with, "Ooh, I start this," and it says, "Fuck ass job tomorrow. My apologies for my language," but that's what she actually put online, and then with all kinds of thumbs down. Then what happened was, one of the employees of the restaurant that she had applied for the job saw that tweet and messaged the manager of that restaurant. And then the manager saw the tweet as well. And then the manager said, "And no, you don't, you start that FA job today. I just fired you. Good luck with your no money, no job life." And then she responded like, "I got fired over Twitter." Ha ha ha. So I'm not a fan of these people. It's a bit, if you want to, if you're in a job application market and you do this before you even start your job. But this is a very nice example of something. I'm not sure if we also have like older participants in the room, but in my time, so when I was your age, when I was like 18, 19 years old, this didn't happen. So these social media weren't that present yet as of now. So just a simple tweet and you don't have a job. And this happened all within 24 hours. And now probably most of you say, yeah, of course, you But this is something that really changes the way we behave, but also how we behave in organizations. And that's the topic of today. So how do, and of course, you can also choose to put on positive messages, and I'm going to talk about that after this slide. So this afternoon, I try to talk about what do you communicate online and with whom do you communicate online. And I'm going to do that in an employee context. So for students, for high school students, well, that's going to be much later when you're like grown-ups and have to worry about grown-up stuff. For the grown-up people in the room, you probably could recognize some of the things in an employee context. Let's see if we can. Oh, by the way, if you have questions, just put it in the chat, right? So during the meeting, if you want to respond, I'm not sure if I can see you. Normally, I would say, please open up your video. And then if you don't do that, that's fine, because my Hong Kong students don't do that a lot. And my students in the Netherlands all these years. So I did this also, the Zoom during the lockdowns in the Netherlands at the beginning of the COVID period. Almost nobody did that. But it's again, so it feels sometimes, it feels like a flashback again, that I'm back online again, sitting at home on my couch, talking to people. I have no clue who you are. But if you smile sometimes, that's good. That's good enough for me. I don't have to know, as long as you think, this is a pretty interesting meeting. Okay, so further in this meeting, so then I try to give a structure of what I'm going to do in the lecture that I teach. So the first part, as I already said, is what and whom do you communicate? And then I'm going to show you a specific study, not a very complex one, but a specific study that's been done about 10 years ago, one of the first studies on this topic. And that's called a Facebook friend request from the boss, which means actually, what do you do when your supervisor or your teacher or your asks you to be friends on Facebook or on Instagram, or so what happens? So that's a bit what I'm going to talk about. Normally, I would then go say, oh, please go online and answer some questions on boundary management behavior. What we'll do now is, and I have no clue what you're doing at the other side of the screen, but let's say that you're raising hands once in a while. So what we're going to do in the current procedure, there's a, yes, please feel free to ask questions. I mean, I'm very flexible, except that I'm sitting at another side of the screen. So my first question then online would be, so who would accept a request from Facebook or Instagram from his or her family, relatives, and friends? And then, of course, I do that online because I like to do that anonymously, because I mean it's nicer. People are more honest when they can answer anonymous. So who would do that? That would be my first question, and I would raise my hand. Yes, of course. If you have an auntie or a niece or a cousin that you haven't seen for a couple of years, and she is now online and she says, "Oh, can we both be on Instagram?" Yes, of course. If you look at that's funny. So if I look at the way that people respond to this question, if it's people from Hong Kong or mainland China or from Europe, different parts of Europe, I taught at an international university, different people in the Netherlands as well. Everybody, so like 90% says, yes, of course, I would accept a Facebook request. Then the second question is going to be, who would accept his or fellow students? So you're sitting in a room, and left and right next to you in the room, there's some students who you know or you don't know. So then that would be the next question. So, and to what extent would you then accept your fellow students on your Facebook and Instagram? That's interesting, because it goes probably mostly then down from 90% of the people who say yes, of course, to 80%. So most of you think, oh, I like my fellow students. Some of you think, nah, I don't like them. I cannot cooperate with them. And again, for the people who are not students but who are working, what about your fellow colleagues, right? So would you accept your fellow colleagues? That's a second question that I normally ask when it comes to boundary management. Then we're going to go a bit more in detail, who would accept his or her teacher on Facebook or Instagram? And there's a difference between Asian students and Western students. In the Western context, mostly it goes down from 80% to 50%. So only half, if I'm actually asking my students, let's say I have about 100 students in a lecture class in a Dutch university, then 50% will say, no, I'm definitely not going to accept the request from my teacher. In Hong Kong, it's still very high. That was surprising me. And there's also a lot of former students who I follow and who follow me on Instagram. So that never happened to me in the Western context, but still it's a bit of it. So we came from relatives to fellow students to teachers. And then of course I would then ask, okay, but we have a question? May we respond and type, oh yes, of course. Oh, it's disabled. Yeah, that's Ophelia. Sorry for that. I'm not sure. Oh, and then somebody raised her hand. Is there a possibility that people can respond in the chat? I'm not sure. Again, I do read your response. So sorry, Ophelia, if it's, oh, Jesse is typing. Good, we have some people typing. Cool. I'll wait like 10, 15 seconds to see if I can respond very quickly to you. Jesse is still typing. The cool thing is then I always use this pause to have a drink.
No problem. Maybe I can fix it backstage, and Dr. Bartens can continue presentation first, and the questions can be addressed at the end of your presentation, which is the Q&A sections.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. But it's and you don't have to, as I said, you don't have to answer it in the chat, but just think about it, right? So I've asked you some questions, some different questions on teacher, fellow students, and me. And then the question is, what just happened in your head in the last few slides? So if you get asked, yeah, would you share something with your friends or with your relatives, you would say, yeah, that's, and then the closer it gets, and especially also, for example, if it's in an organization, let's say you have a summer job, would you then accept a request from your supervisor during that summer job? So the general idea is that you then have to probably think probably your response in your head is a bit different than the first question I ask you. So this is a very important part of this boundary management behavior is, so what do you do and with who do you communicate with? So more closely, what and with whom do you communicate? I would then first give you some idea on posts like Instagram pictures, but I want to ask you, and that's what you can do, so you don't have to put something in the chat, but what I would ask you to, we have some time for that, yes. Please type in AnswerGarden. We're all online, so that's good. And then go to 301-3933, and then just, if you on, let's say that you're on Instagram or on another social, like on WeChat or on another, why would you post a picture on that? So why, please come up with just one word, and I'll give you like a couple of minutes to respond so that we can all then see. Again, it's anonymous, so don't worry, nobody knows who answered what, but just think about it for a second. So why do you post pictures on Instagram? What would be the reason for that? Why would you do that? And I'll click on the link in a second, but I'll first let you go to the link before we share that with everybody else. post the link in the chat. Oh, that's a good one. In this chat? Let me.
I guess you can all make use of the Q&A box here, just like Ophelia can ask questions in the Q&A section. They can make use of the function there instead of the chat box.
Oh, yes. So it's answergarden.ch/3013933. And I'm sending it. Let's see if I can send it now. So I hope you see it in the Q&A chat. Let's see what we have. Memories. Nice. So you post pictures on Instagram for memories, seek attention. Oh, good. Interesting. For positive vibes. Yes. Share my happiness. Publicity, to get publicity. Okay, cool. Interesting. I'm going to talk about, oh, wait. Accountability. Ooh, that's a, ooh, please don't use these difficult words for me. I'm not that clever as I look. Okay, accountability. Positive vibes. I'm going to refresh a couple of times. Oh, validation. Oh, good one. We're going to talk about validation. We're going to talk about positive vibes. We're going to talk about share happiness. Cool. Validation is something not exactly the same as share my happiness. So that's thanks. If you weren't on time, don't worry. It's just to give people an idea of emotions. Yes. Thanks. You're awake. Oh, funny. Very nice. So this was I do this on several occasions. So I sometimes have bigger groups. If you see bigger letters, that means that 2 or 3 or 4 people have said exactly the same. So you see here, show my uniqueness. Again, oh, memorable, share happy life, want to get some attention. Some of them use it for business purposes. So these are a bit the general idea. This is a general self-esteem. So it makes me feel happy and better. And you see self-presentation, share my happiness. So really cool. So what you've just done is like pretty similar to what fitness and friends ask why I don't post. That's now okay. Post about your Bronwyn. Okay. Don't feel that. I hope you don't feel too much pressure for that. So only do it when you want to. Don't listen to your friends that much when they push you to do something on this topic. So next, so this is, as I said, first think about, okay, why do I post stuff online? What is the reason for that? Now I'm going to show you a person on the next slide. Let's say that this person is your teacher at HKBU. And then based on this post, this Instagram update, what be your first response? For example, would you think, that's a likable guy or girl, or, oh, I respect him or her. So if you would see this one, for example, you see this guy, he's actually presenting at an international conference, and this is one of his updates on Instagram. So yes, there's also time for serious work, the 5th International CSR Communication Conference. So then it's Stockholm School of Economics. So it's a pretty, what you see here is, so at least it's positive, right? So it's like, I'm also need to do some work, but it's a kind of a professional update, right? So on this person's international work. Now, imagine this person again. So it's the same person, but a totally different context. So again, you now see him or her in a totally different context, and it's like this one. So we're ready on the first run. We're almost starting. So this was A couple of years ago, we did a Disney run in Disneyland Paris with my family and not my family, with my cousins and some friends. So if you see this picture, so it says, it's in Dutch, but it says we're ready onto the first run. We're almost starting. Yes. And then you see all these people. There were a lot of weird people like dressed like Mickey Mouse, and it was fun. But if you look at this picture, so serious work, and then you look at this picture, which is the same person but a totally different perspective, right? So now you still see a happy or positive update, but on a much more personal level. So these, again, exactly the same person. Perhaps if you saw only one of these, most of you would have probably different responses to that. Now you've seen both, so that's not entirely fair. But normally you would then think, that's not per se the same person. So the question is, and then normally I would ask actually in the room, so what was the difference in your response between the two posts? So take a minute to discuss with your neighbor. It's going to be a bit more difficult to do that online, but as I said, normally I give people then 2 or 3 minutes in the room to actually discuss, okay, how did you respond and what was your response and what does that mean? So now a bit more scientific. So to explain these different motivations that some of you also put on online just a couple of minutes ago, is that different motivations, people have different motivations, and based on these different motivations, people have different. So colleagues, for example, or your colleagues, your student colleagues will have different responses to this online behavior. And Oli Malatea, forget the name, they have developed a model in which they assume that these different motivations lead actually to different online behavior. So if you want to post something because you want to feel happy, you post something different than if you want to feel validated. So if you want to feel like people have to support you, or you're a bit unhappy, and so that they developed a model for that, for these different consequences in a work context. The idea is, and this is the summary, and I'm going to show you the pictures in the next slide. So we have this integration self-segmentation. So do you add everybody into your Facebook or Instagram account, or so do you integrate everything? So private and work, or private and study, versus people who segment, who actually put everything together. And then we have like a self-verification motive. So the idea of I want to be seen as who I am, versus the self-enhancement motive, which actually means in human language, happy updates, just happy. And I'm sure that you've seen some of the people in your surroundings putting some relatively negative stuff online. Everybody has in their network, in their online network, at least 1 or 2 of them, and you recognize it direct. So most of us probably put on, yay, how cool is our lives? But some of perhaps yourself are more into, I want to also put some negative stuff online. And this model says that then people will respond differently, and especially also in a work context. So this is, when it comes to self-enhancement, this was one of my, I did a lecture a couple of years ago at Cambridge in the United Kingdom on corporate social responsibility for 65 Chinese students who were on a trip. So from mainland China, were on a trip in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure if they understood what I've been doing in this workshop the afternoon, but everybody wanted to be they all wanted to be in the picture. That was a bit, I never had that with European students. So that was a pretty, but this is like self-enhancement, right? It makes me feel happy and more positive. So it's like, ooh, cool. I was popular for a couple of seconds. That was actually Then when it comes to self-verification, and I've blurred the person, this is a former student of mine from about 5-6 years ago, I think. And she posts, you don't have to read it all, but she posts both positive and negative. So she says she's pretty honest about herself, a bit heavier, right? So this is a pretty easy, yay, cool. And this is a bit more So last year I agreed on something with myself. So this is a bit heavier. So this is called self-verification, in a sense that you want to present yourself as who you are. Of course, this is also who I am, but this is only my positive side. And this is then the positive and the more critical side of yourself. Then you have segmentation. And I used Facebook because at that time, Facebook was still used by people like me. So you can say, well, the profile is visible for business contacts only, right? So you in some of these programs, you can actually divide work, and this is then called segmentation, that you say, well, I have a different online social media page for my friends versus for more business kind of context. Or integration. Like this is, again, you see here David Schouten, which is a fake Dutch person who worked somewhere, and I was at Radboud University. This is exactly the same person, except this guy shares everything with everybody. And this guy, which is exactly the same, only shares with business stuff with his business associates, while private stuff on a different account or on a different social media. And this guy is exactly the same, except it's integration. Now, what this model says in summary is actually, so if you want to see people as you are, which is called self-verification, and you don't mind who's looking at your Facebook profile, which is like integration, you accept everybody, and then the authors state that you have an open boundary management. So everybody's allowed. And then what you see on the left here is on average, and that's what we found in some studies as well, it could decrease respect and liking in an organizational context. So employees who actually share everything with everybody, like positive and negative, then perhaps that could lead to more negative thoughts of colleagues about who you are. So that's the general idea. So in this case, if you use this strategy, the model says it will turn into decrease of respect and liking of your colleagues. So in summary, so based on this theory, you can explain how people communicate online and with whom they communicate. So what we always see is, so the online behavior you choose leads to different responses among colleagues, or in your case, your fellow students or your friends or your teachers. So that's the general thought of this model. Let's see. Do these models take into account various platforms? That's a good one. Very good question. Yes, to some extent. For research purposes, normally we use just one of them and then separate them, but very good question. Yes, you can of course say, well, but LinkedIn has of course a different, that is for professional people. And Facebook is well for, they say, for older people. It's not entirely true, but Twitter, yes, I do agree that there's not a lot of research on the differences. We did some research on the difference between LinkedIn and Facebook a couple of years ago. And yes, we did see differences in how people respond. The funny thing is, I have Pakistani colleagues, so I work also with scholars from Pakistan, and they seem to communicate, even for business purposes, much more on Facebook than what I was used to in the Netherlands. So there's also a cultural aspect of it. Yes, of course, LinkedIn is totally different than Facebook. I mean, LinkedIn would say it's pure for your business network, while Instagram is very personal, mostly because you share your personal pictures. And we know that there are definitely differences in how people respond. Yes, good question. Very nice. So this is then the time that I give you some time to ask some questions. I've already tried to answer. Let's see, what was the other one? Oh yeah, yes, the accountability and these models. Thanks. So to be more specific, I just showed you the model, and I'm going to show you now a very concrete example of a study, not a very complex study, very relatively small study that one of my colleagues in the field did a couple of years ago. And the main idea was, of course, the rise of social media and private and work life. Yeah, of course. But what happened, at the beginning was that a national supermarket chain fired a long-term company truck driver after finding out that he was cross-dressing. So he was walking around as a transvestite. He put that online, and then he was fired. Another example was somebody who worked at a specific beer company, drank a different beer at a party, put that online, and he got fired as well for not drinking the beer that he was working for. You could say, ridiculous. Yes, it is ridiculous, but apparently if you put stuff online on social media, that could have these weird consequences. And so this was a bit the idea of the part of the study. And what they did was actually they asked people. So the scientific sentence would be qualitative assess blog comments, but actually they asked people who were active on blogs. Okay, would you, just one question. There was one question like, would you accept a Facebook request from your boss? And then also give an answer to why. So why would you do that? Why would you, or why wouldn't you do that? Let me see, there's another. French-speaking country. Yes. Yes, that's a cultural thing. Definitely a cultural thing. I agree with that. Just to give you an idea of the study, so they had two different assumptions. So the positive response would be, yes, of course, I would accept the response because that's good for my network. So if my boss is on my on my Facebook or my Instagram, I know that and I'm going to put positive things, then I know he's going to like me. So that's better for my future. So that was one. So the positive responses when people said yes was mostly related to these idea of personalized networking, right? So if you have a supervisor in your network, that's better for your career than if you don't have a supervisor in your network. So the idea is that could have a positive influence on your life as a student, right? If you would have your teacher as your friend or not. I'm not saying that it does, but these are the arguments that people can use for, could be good for my career and for my future network. The negative responses, so why would people not accept a Facebook request? Forget about the name of the theory, but the general idea is that what one participant said was, well, it's healthy to set boundaries and be honest and communicate with your friends, but it's also very important to see that people you work with are not your friends, so different rules apply. So you have here these positive people who say, yes, of course, and they use then the argument of it could be good for my network and for my future versus now at home I'm a totally different person than at work, and they're not my friends, so I keep that separate. So that's the two positive, or that's the positive and the negative responses that you could have. So actually, at the office, you're like this very handsome dude in a suit, and at home, you're actually on a couch, and you don't want these roles to integrate with each other. You don't want people at your job or at the office or to know, okay, I'm different when I'm at the sofa at home. That's the idea if you say, I don't accept Facebook requests or Instagram requests from my boss or my supervisor. So here we have some examples. So these were the yes people, and they said, well, it can do your career more good to be friends with your boss. So there were a couple of people, and NS6 means 6 respondents. As I said, it's a very small qualitative study. So accept because it can help your career. Then accept, but use privacy settings. So a lot of people say, yeah, I'm going to accept my boss, but I'm not going to show him or her everything. So you choose some severe privacy settings, or you choose to self-monitor. So if you then accept a Facebook request from your supervisor, you think, yeah, but I'm going to perhaps not put that on Facebook anymore, but put that somewhere else. So that's also a group of people who respond like that. And of course, there's a lot of people in this case, in this study said, well, nah, don't ever accept the boss, or anyone can tell the boss what's on there. Trust me, it's bad news. And you see that this is And there's much more to this, but again, this is like ignore it or do not accept because of, well, don't do that because it's a different world. So in summary, and I always have to warn you guys, this is a Me Too and or parental advisory. If you're a parent, you're still allowed to see it. And so on the next two slides, I'm going to actually summarize the topic, but in a more visual kind of way. So positive responses would be, it's good to have. So on the left, you see here that the supervisor is doing not something that is very nice, but the general idea is, okay, it's good for my career to be on Facebook with my supervisor. And on the right, I'm not sure if you guys know the Family Guy series on Comedy Central. I use a lot of these pictures to try to explain the difference between different examples. So this is if people respond positively to a Facebook request, they think, oh, it's going to help my career. On the other hand, if people say, no, I'm not going to accept colleagues or my supervisor on Facebook because it's two totally different worlds. And then you see here Peter Griffin. That's the main character in Family Guy. He's actually cross-dressing here, and he doesn't want the boss to see that. So what you have to realize, and that's take-home message 2, actually realize that everything you communicate online can have positive and negative consequences for your private life and your career. So please be aware of what you do online. And then mostly, I also say we have to, of course, it's not that you cannot put negative stuff on there, but how I started with the example of this girl getting fired via Twitter, that is actually a reality that we live in an organizational world, compared to what happened like when most of you guys were very young and you didn't have a clue what social media was before. So this is an example of how I would, and a short version of, normally I have 3 hours for this topic in one topic, in one lecture. So I try to put that in about 30 to 40 minutes. So this is a bit the idea of what you get, and much more interactivity, right? So it's online now. We're luckily doing face-to-face again. So there's a lot of interactivity, and you see also in the Asian context, people respond as well. So that's going to be. I'm going to teach again on Tuesday, and I'm going to it's going to be fun again. So that's it from me for now. Thank you for your attention at the other side. And if there are questions you would like to ask me now or later, then this is the moment. Oh, I saw. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And there is some room for Q&A. Jesse, can we? I'm not sure how it works. It's always interesting to see how that.
In case there are any questions related to the topic, you can just share them in the Q&A box, the question and answer box.
Let me see. Oh, the average age of the people in the study, that's a good one. They're a bit older. They're a bit older than the Generation Z. And again, it's an old study, right? So, but this was one of the first that was actually investigating. So how do people respond? So the main thing is that people use different kind of arguments to accept or not to accept. So like totally different arguments. And that's what I still find very interesting about this study. So I hope that answers your question a bit.
So if no further questions, then maybe we can move to the next part. And thanks for Dr. Barton's great presentation today.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it a bit, and you guys, good luck in your future choice for an international university. And I'm not the only one being very enthusiastic about my job. So if you like to come to our university, I have a lot of colleagues who are as funny as I am. I'm going to be on mute. If you want to contact me, just rewatch the video in the beginning and just email me. I'll respond very quickly most of the time.
Thanks. Thank you, Dr. Verhulst. So we are going to the next part, which is about the undergraduate admissions of HKBU, and I'm now going to share my PowerPoint with you all. So I guess now you can all see my presentation PowerPoint. So I'm not sure how many of you have visited this city before, but I'm quite sure that many of you should know how the cities look like. Actually, it's a metropolitan located at the heart of Asia with high level of international connectivity with the rest of the world. It's one of the most competitive economies in the world, which means there are ample opportunities for internships and career. And actually, it's also a perfect place to kickstart the career after graduation. Actually, many of our students take up on-campus part-time jobs and internship opportunities during their study here, and some of them even stayed here for job hunt after graduation. And this city is also famous for its no crime rate. And now is about the life of studying in Hong Kong. Actually, this city is a perfect combination of metropolitan and nature. Apart from the high rise in this city, there are also many hiking trails. So it means you can enjoy the greenery and the stunning views just like this photo shows when you are studying here. And you can also benefit from the diversified culture here. You can meet people from all around the world and benefit from the cultural diversity in all aspects of life when you study here. After getting to know more about the city, here's some basic information about our university. Our university is a public funded university in this city, and it's also a standout arts educator in Asia. It's founded by the Baptist Convention of Hong Kong in year 1956. Even so, actually all are welcome to join us regardless of religion's faith. English is the medium of instruction here, except some programs like Chinese medicine and Chinese language. And we are a medium-sized university with approximately 7,300 undergraduate students. And we have around 730 faculty and teaching staffs here. So the low staff and student rate implies that the learning experience here is a more personalized one. And you can expect that students here can have a higher chance to interact closely with their teachers. So the bond in between teacher and students is very strong. And thanks to the medium size of student populations, our university is able to offer ample resources and opportunities to our students, including overseas exchange, internship, and some of our students can even join the overseas competitions. So after getting to know our university a bit more, I guess you might be more interested in getting to know the programs we are offering. We have 7 faculties offering programs in diversified disciplines, including arts, science, social science, business, Chinese medicine, communication, and creative arts. Sorry. And here's the full program list. I'm not going to read them one by one here, and you are very welcome to visit our admissions website for details of our programs. And in these 2 years, we promote transdisciplinary and personalized pathway programs, which is a global trend, I think, as students nowadays are expected to work across disciplines to solve complex problems. The first one is the combination of business and technology, as you can expect. The second one is about applying technology in arts and culture sector. The third one is to equip students with business knowledge for the pursuit of a career in entertainment sector. The fourth one is about technological innovations, is to apply technological innovation to advance the social well-being. And the final one is the personalized pathway program, which enables students to design their own learning pathway to solve problems under the guidance and support of the university. And you may wish to note that experiential learning plays a major role here. And we encourage students to attend overseas exchange programs, research activities, and entrepreneurship initiatives to reach their potential. And we would also like to let you know that many possibilities are open to our students here. Our international students will get a place in the university's accommodation at their first year of study. So it means that they can meet people from around the world at the time when they join us. And there are also many activities that they can join when studying here. They can join or start a club or attend the service learning program for greater good of the society. So you can imagine how exciting the life at HKBU can be. And here's the most important part, and that's the admission information. We accept qualifications including IB, GCE, and SAT. For IB, we expect the candidate should complete the IB diploma. For GCE, they should obtain at least grade E in 3 A-level or in 2 A-level plus 2 AS level, excluding Chinese and English language subjects. For SAT, For SAT, we expect they should obtain 1190 and also a high school graduation diploma. Actually, we accept an array of qualifications other than those mentioned here. And for English language requirements, the most popular ones should be IELTS and TOEFL. As mentioned, we accept qualification other than those stated here. And as you can see at the bottom of this page, there's a list, and you're very welcome to visit our website to check out the details of the requirements and the detailed list of the qualification we'll consider. And that's the timeline for international candidates. Actually, our main round has already started, and our main round will end on the 31st of January. So please take time to complete your application as soon as possible if you're interested in it. Followed by that is the extended round, which lasts from February to May. And our online application is rather simple. You can simply start your application by clicking the link here to create an account. You can select up to 2 program choices in maximum. One point to note is that only when the first choice gets rejected, then the second one will be considered. So please make sure the first one is the one that you really wish to get into. And the second stage about the process of your application, after you have submitted your application, if the faculty or school finds you qualified, then you will receive the invitations of interview or auditions. Sometimes some programs may require the candidate to submit portfolio, but no worry that the portfolio requirement should be clearly specified in the offering department. So you please feel free to visit the website to make well planning of it and make good preparations. At the third stage, which is offer acceptance. If the faculty and school find you qualified for an offer of scholarship or admission, they will issue a conditional offer or firm offer. If you applied with a predicted grade, with result yet to announced, then you will receive a conditional offer. And later, when the result announced and proves that you have met all the requirements, then your offer will turn to be a firm one. But you don't have to wait until your result announced. Just apply with your latest transcript and predicted grades, and we'll make admission decision based on the documents you have submitted. So, and we encourage interested students to apply as soon as possible. And we know that you may wish to make good planning before you start your study here. So here's the information about fees and scholarships. At the left-hand side, you can see the list of the expected expense per academic year. It adds up to around $26,000 per year. And on the right-hand side lists out the scholarship that we offer to our outstanding candidates. There are 3 types of them. One is a full scholarship, which is around $25,000, which covers a significant part of the estimated expenses. And the second one is a tuition waiver. And the third one is the half scholarship. This scholarship is tenable for the normal duration of the program and is renewable annually, subject to your satisfactory academic performance. And apart from this, sometimes the faculty or school may also offer one-off scholarship, which is sometimes quite generous. And holistic approach will be adopted when considering award of scholarship, which include academic performance, non-academic performance, which is, for example, relevant activities that you have joined before, your personal attributes, and also the interview performance. So, successful candidates will be informed of the scholarship award together with the notification of admission offer. So you can make well planning before you decide to take up the offer from HKBU. And that's some basic information that I would like to share with you. And please feel free to contact us if you are interested in it. And English requirements applies to all interest candidates. So even you are not just graduated from the high school, you are expected to submit valid English result at the time of your application. Or if you have no valid result in hand at the time of application, at least state the planned time for you to take the test so that we know you are going to meet the requirement later on.
So for non-procedural questions later, you can send me an email as well. So if you want to have some ideas on how it is to study at HKBU, what kind of students I teach, just let me know if you're interested.
Okay. So thanks for joining the section today. And thanks, Dr. Buttons, to give a great presentation today with us all. We can share the video of the webinar by email very soon. So please stay tuned to your update. Thanks. Thank you so much, Dr. Buttons. Thank you.
For now, thank you. Have a nice weekend all, everywhere in the world. And for the people who, so I think you'll get some answers. So Maria had a question on the full scholarship, and Naula, sorry that I pronounced it incorrectly. On the, is there any major? So probably, yeah, email my colleague and she will probably give you a very good answer to that one.
Thanks.